for starting with such sweet comments, and to my partners at SNS Health. Thank you to Renell and the HAFA board for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you guys. And a special thanks to all of you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. Kind of hard to follow a guy like Mike with all that knowledge, but I have one advantage over him. While I haven't spoken at as many conferences as him, I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So I'm hoping that'll come into play here. Again, my name is Dan Robinson. I'm the president and CEO of Sonolo. Us and our family of integrated companies have been working in this industry for over 30 years, and our goal is to provide unique approaches to healthcare and supplemental benefits. I want to start by saying that this is certainly not an advertisement for what we do, although there is a little bit of it kind of baked in. What we're really here to do is take you, the agent, and show you a different way to look at things. And that's really the goal of this. And there are other organizations who are taking unique approaches as well. But there's one thing I know we can't do. We can't keep doing the same thing. And as much as I just complimented Mike, I'll also ask Blue Cross Blue Shield to cover their ears during this, because I am not here to promote anything but take the unveiling and the truth and have you guys look at things differently. So what's interesting about this thing is when I got asked to do it by SNS and communicating with Renell, all of a sudden they said, your theme music. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to speak to these folks about, much less I have to worry about a theme song. But I know, did anybody see on HBO, they started doing documentaries? So they did one on Journey, they did one on Bon Jovi, and the next thing you know, it's Guns N' Roses. And I'm like, you know what, first off, that's going to get my juices flowing and everybody's juices flowing. But then I thought about the topic I wanted to go into. Welcome to the jungle. So folks, welcome to it. We're all in the jungle right now. We're all stuck. Free market, carrier choice, taken out from under us. Decrement options to serve our clients, eviscerated. Don't exist. Clients beating down your door, asking you to do more for less, making it harder. And now, the Disclosure Act. So you have to have that fight all over again about what you're worth. And I heard it spoken about before. We are in the jungle, folks, but over the next 50 minutes, I will be your guide, I'll be your Sherpa, and I'm going to show you some paths to give you new perspective on how to get you and your client out of the jungle. So let's take that ride together, okay? Now, in order to get out of the jungle, we have to take a look backwards. And behind you, you're going to see a timeline of what I think are key healthcare events that have occurred over the past 50, 60 years. Now, mind you, this doesn't represent every single impactful decision that's been made, but it does represent where we are today. So let's go back. Let's go back to a time when you had your Blue Cross and your Blue Shield, or just your Blue Shield. The famous $100 deductible plan. Go see the doctor you want, go get the prescription you want, $100 in and out. And then everything turned. And the next line is the one that I think started off what we continue to experience today. And that was the HMO Act. This is a typo. They didn't put the new one up. It's 73, not 83. And what were the key components of the HMO Act of 73? Federal subsidizing of health maintenance organizations, which brought two tremendous things to the market that changed it forever. Number one, health maintenance organizations could force employers of 25 lives or more to offer an HMO, could legitimately do that. And you heard that I was with US Healthcare. I was part of the marching group of apples that showed up on every site. And the second thing it did was it brought capitation. And capitation started a 20-year war that hasn't stopped. Providers versus carriers. Providers ordering services that are unnecessary because they own the independent radiological centers that were there. carriers then cutting back and limitations and exclusions. And out of that, our free market died. It died because regional players couldn't hang on. It died because it was easy just to sell out. And what we ended up was with the big four. No market choice, no competitive nature. But also what happened, many of you who've been around, I've been in this business 33 years. What happened to the small group GA who had the regional GA contract? Did a better job than the massive GAs that we have today. They were eviscerated also. With choice also took jobs and took choice and the ability to work with people. And now you had super GAs that came out of this. And that war never stopped. And we still battle it today. The next thing was the Medicare Act of 2003. The big thing out of that one, by the way, and there were many different points to it, was the fact that the creation of the qualified high deductible health plan was born and started to be offered in 2004. Although, like all of us, it took about 10 or 15 years for trend to catch up. And now if you were to poll America, look at Millman, look at some of the studies, 90% of all groups offer at least one Q80HP plan. Then in 2010, as Mike so pointed out, the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to take the approach of a learned man who gave some great stats. I'm going to take the other side of it. Brokerages shut down for 10 months because they realized their clients weren't in compliance. I watched Alphabet Houses not do anything or see a visitor for a year because now all these new rules came in. And I'm just going to say it because it's my personal opinion. If you're going to have an Affordable Care Act, make sure people can actually afford what you're putting out. And now the Consolidated Appropriations Act. There are far smarter people who will be talking about that today, but now as one component of it, we now have to argue for what we're worth. What's next, guys? What's coming? So let's compare something else, the evolution of humans. 750,000 years ago, we started as monkeys or Homo erectus. Now what's important about, you guys really don't think that I'm here to talk about this is an insurance convention, for Christ's sake. But there is something these two timelines show. Humans, we hope, are evolving. Healthcare is dissolving. And let's dispel with calling this healthcare, this is sick care. So now let's go into the next wave of how we got there. So we're going to break it down into the size segments that are identified by us in the industry. The sole proprietor, the 1099. This is the fastest growing segment of our population today, and we'll dive into that in one of the solutions a little later. The gig economist, the independent for Google or one of the tech companies. And now let's look at the challenges. And I want to preface this by saying, because I heard some people out there saying they still guide individual people through. And I'm going to defer to another brilliant thing Mike said is going, how many clients did you get because they didn't know what they bought, didn't have their doctors, didn't have their specialists? I'm going to let you guys in a little secret. I don't have that knowledge, but what I do know is that 14 states outsource their call centers to companies that bid on it. I happen to represent one of those, which I will not blast here. What I do know is I watched as they had training sessions for people that came from Target and Walmart, put them in a room for 2 days, and now you are certified to be able to give people advice on their health care. Is it any shock that nobody knows what they're doing?
Market.
Now let's go into the other challenges. Limited availability. Mike just showed you that there are 5 plans that they're trying to standardize, but that also depends on the state you're in. Because people are getting out of the private exchange as quickly as they entered. They jumped in thinking they could do great, they realized they couldn't handle it, they're out. Affordability from 2 standpoints. What is affordable? Affordable because the premium meets the requirement, or the fact that you buy a plan that you can't even go to the doctor to because you're at $9,100 deductible. We talked about the limited guidance and support. And there's no plan education. To Mike's point, people are buying plans. They don't even know if their physicians are in it. Do they really understand how to functionally work within the plan for themselves and their families? And now we get, and I know that we have a lot of people from Louisiana, and I know y'all understand that I'm a northerner coming into the South, invading yet again. But I could make you feel more comfortable if I talk like this. You want me to do that? I'll give you a... I'm just teasing. Up near us, it's community rated, meaning they file their plans on a quarterly basis. I know in some states, it's done by individual questionnaire or group health questionnaire. Now again, what is the challenge for a company in this market? Limited carrier choice, affordable options, because there are only so many plans, the same affordability issue in terms of what the employer can afford to give, minus what an employee can afford to even seek the care. There's very limited flexibility and customization. How many people here, when a renewal comes in from Cigna, get a sheet of decrements with 12 choices, and when you look at where you already are, you can't find something that's actually going to accomplish your goal? And I'm going to touch on this again and again and again. We are archaic in the way that we communicate and educate employees today. 95%, how many people in this room, we must have 1 million OE meetings combined over all the years. Name one person who remembers anything you said 3 hours after they leave. Seriously. Now we get into my favorite, purgatory. You know what the analogy is between the people in line and groups of this size? You're stuck either way. When you're running well, you're not credible and you're given a manual rate. When you are credible and you're running like crap, how quickly does the BUCA raise your rate and say you're 100% credible? You're trapped either way. And as brokers and consultants trying to do the best for your client, they don't give you the data to substantiate the increase to begin with. We can't serve our clients without legitimate information. We're still trapped with the same feasible plan options within this size, limited customization, and we still have the problems with strategy for proper education. And now we get into the big boy, experience rated. Now guys, you heard that I was with All America Financial. Many of you might not have been around long enough or have been to know that All America Financial was one of the first in the ASO limited minimum premium market. They eventually became Great West. So I've built plans from scratch going back to 1989. But there is a stigma around this. There is fear around this. Because of you as consultants who dive in this market and take this ASO, better fully understand every component of the client risk when you do it. You better understand that you can't just buy a spec and an ad and attachment points. You better have cost containment strategies that work. You better bring in enhanced communication and tools that are going to drive your cost strategy. And here's the biggest reason why clients don't go this way, or even level funded where there is predictability. We're afraid to screw up. What if we make the wrong choice? Because once there's real data, that's when the client is really trapped. So now let's talk about the strategies that we in this room have all employed in order to control cost. This is my favorite. We call it the merry-go-round approach. Been here before? The tweak. Renewal comes in 60 to 90 days if you're lucky enough to get it. You nip here, you tuck there, you get the group to an increase they can live with. You put it to bed, I made my money, I'll deal with it 9 months from now. Maybe if the group is large, you're doing a mid-year review. Guys, everybody loses. Your client's spending more, the employees are contributing more, you have not done one thing to change outcomes. You've thrown sandbags at a tsunami. And you know what that means? You're running out of road. I like to use movie analogies. You are too far down the rabbit's hole, and there's no way out. Now let's look at other strategies that have come with some of the new products that have been designed. The ADHP. Now this is one where I'm actually in favor with what the BUCA says. If you do not execute the plans right and set contributions correct, tell me if I'm wrong here, guys. I want to describe a typical 120 life group to you. 12 execs on the PPO, 85 people in the EPO, 4 people on the ADHP. Why is that? Because we are not consulting our clients well enough on the strategies for contribution. Because part of this has to be shifting risk and shifting choice and not making people afraid of certain exposures if you can protect the risk properly. But the problem is we don't do it the right way. We put in first dollar exposure, and Blue Cross, as an example, is right to load it because we took consumerism away from the decision. And by the way, I don't know if you've noticed in the last 10 years, but they've caught up because the decrements to move to those type of plans have come down significantly. Now, here's my favorite ploy of some of the brokers I've worked with. We're running great. We fund the second half of the deductible, and we have 12% utilization. Because nobody can afford to use the plan in the first place. Not one person who's done one thing to access care. Where am I now?
15.
Good, that's what I wanted to know. Now, guys, I told you I ran an enrollment firm after the BUCAs. I'm working for major carriers, and I enrolled $500 million of work site for many years. We were also one of the innovators of gap plans. I love the voluntary industry. I love the carriers as well, all of them. I think we all care about what we do and we're passionate. But we are using these things the wrong way. If the employer is not funding, we're bringing in unnamed people, which is why I blocked their symbols. But the truth of the matter is,
Very correct.
we're fitting square pegs in a round hole. And we're doing it standalone. These decisions must be done in concert. If you're going to make customized changes to the plan, then the supplemental products you bring in must be part of the equation. I like to call it the cart leading the horse. You guys go out, make the changes, then you expect that the carrier's product's gonna match up perfectly. And when you find out it doesn't, you say, your plan doesn't work. No, you didn't put it in right. Poor design leading to lack of financial viability, which also goes along with the idea that if you're going to do this, you need return of investment. And you're gonna be asked to prove ROI. If you did, then you shouldn't have done it to begin with. Now let's talk about the gap plans. And they are starting to grow, and we were one of the leaders. We made every mistake possible with gap to figure out how to do it the right way. But here's the number one problem with the two-card system. Providers are not playing ball. They can delay a claim, they cannot file a claim, they can sit there where collection letters come out and everything else because it doesn't work. And from these carriers, they want there to be a problem and a delay in the claim paying. They want it because their loss ratios and their filings in loss ratio states demand that they hit that number. They're actuarially counting on a percentage of people to be frustrated and stop. Are we really solving our clients' problems that way? Anybody? No. So right now, who wants to go drink with me? Because I'm depressed. I just painted the bleakest picture of our market in history. And now you guys know, we are in the thick of it. We are in the middle of the jungle. But there are ways out. We need viable, long-term strategies and approaches with truly affordable health care, with enhanced education, with advanced tools, because if we're going to wait for the employee to engage, it's not going to happen. I am one of the people who will tell you I am not afraid of disruption if disruption steers the group the right way. It just has to be the right disruption, and it has to be disruption that impacts change. So how do we accomplish this, guys? Now again, I reiterate, These are some of the ways we try and serve our brokers. In no means does that mean I'm here because I want you to work with me. There are other companies who try and do similar. I'm not going to say they're as good as us, but they try and do similar. So let's look at this differently. And again, let me steal a line from Morpheus and Matrix. Free your mind. Path number 1. Targeted industry designed healthcare. What do I mean by that? What did I say earlier? That the largest growing economy or industry types are the variable hour population. They can't afford the affordable test, they can't afford the contribution rate, and employers are stuck with $1,300 single rates. We need to look at it differently, but my sister company actually did. They were one of the first in the MEC area. Actually, it came from something called wage parity in the state of New York that looked at people in the healthcare industry, nurses, aides, whatnot, and gave employers the choice to either increase their hourly or they could buy that value in benefits. And out of that birthed the idea of let's actuarially look at specific industries and look at how they operate. The Health Benefit Alliance has now expanded affordable quality health and benefit through intelligent plan design, unrivaled focus, innovation, and discipline delivery. Discipline is a really important word, and I'll kind of explain why in a minute. The purpose for the Health Benefit Alliance is to look at industries where the variable hour lives and breathes, where the employer is trying their best. But they can't make it affordable even if they were forced to. We're looking at staffing companies. We're looking at hospitality, restaurant groups, QSR, which is quick serve restaurants, home health care, hotels, motels, car dealerships, security guards, retail. We looked at 4 million people and actuarially determined what their exact utilization was, then designed those plans with our own risk in order to make plans affordable. And this is the key, the market need. That number is from 2020. We now have close to 90 million people who are hourly employees, yet they have less than $1,000 in their bank account, and they've got more in credit card debt. And when Mike was up there showing with the changes of all the different plans, which was great that you were up there, I really appreciated that. It just illustrated what I was going to. How does someone making $13 an hour afford $9,001? They can't. They just can't. What we did was evaporate the barriers of care. What we did was make these copay plans, no deductibles, no coinsurance. But there's also no magic pill. How can one plan be different than the other? It's judicious use. And one of those judicious things, guys, that you will know in ACA is that in order to meet minimum value, 60% of covered expenses. It is not just the items in which it's covered, but how it is covered. You cannot have dollar limits, but you absolutely can have day limits. And one of the biggest things, if we go back to one of the slides from Blue Cross Blue Shield, is I love a platinum plan, but we didn't see the premiums. Maybe this is a good deal because I can afford this, but we want co-pays again. We don't want to restrict people from the everyday use because they will tell you, all the carriers will tell you, when they don't go, that same claim becomes 20 times the expense to the employer and the health plan because we didn't give them affordable access to it. And our goal is to meet the spectrum of benefits. So I can meet your Part A with your bottom of the barrel mech. We can meet your bronze, silver, gold, but I can do it, we do it, at a $450 rate for silver, a single. $594 a family. But are we the same as a healthcare company in that it's unlimited visits? No. Our plans have what we trademarked as limited day medical. So as the plans get richer, the more visits we give you within the sick area for your tests, for your x-rays. But the point being is we can serve a whole population. Now what's also critical about this is that we serve a community where if we're going to come in this way, we also have to prove that it meets the actuarial calendar. Windsor Group out of Princeton is one of the most recognized actuarial advancement organizations in the country with the ACIC calculator, and all of the plans are certified. Because we know when that 1094 or 1095 responsibility comes in, we have to. Now guys, there's also something else I'm gonna bring up to you, because I'm looking out for you. Because that's what Rennell would want. There is a difference between limited day medical and limited medical. Limited medical looks and feels like they have co-pays, but what it really is indemnity reimbursement that confuses everybody. And people are left with huge balance bills. And this is where communication has to come in. And we go all the way to our ultra plans. Again, all co-pay in, but we do have certain restrictions. Day visits. There are certain things in the gold and under that don't exist. End-stage renal failure. Chemo and radiation. And we have one defined rule, and I call this a prohibitor, but I believe in it. Guys, when we go for an MRI, and our people don't know better, because they're used to going to the hospital, same machinery, same radiologist, 4 to 6 times the cost to the plan. We don't let them. One of the things we do is we say, if you have a planned hospitalization, then you know you can go have that test somewhere else. So we're not going to allow you to do it there. Now, in an emergency, of course, all bets are off. But we have to use diligence in how we design. So it's not apples for apples. But when you look at this particular industry is crying for affordable health care for everyday cost. And that's when we can put in other catastrophic plans, supplemental plans, so that people, because I believe employees should be empowered to be able to cover those exposures. But we have to look at these industries differently, because the actuarial numbers tell us that they don't need a $1,300 plan with a 0 deductible and a $10 copay. They need something they can afford to contribute to, and they need something they can afford to actually use. Path number 1. Path number 2. All these years I've been in the business, and all the cases I've seen, and it took us about 16 years really to come up with the tagline. It's something we proudly call total cost management. What is total cost management? It's not on the screen, guys. I'll go back. Total cost management is a combination of owning your own A-risk paper, innovative custom design approach using a secondary insurance to shift risk out of the claim pool and frequency, guided concierge and mobile app service that actually interacts with the population as opposed to Blue Book that waits for them to actually use it, removing the barriers and the ease of understanding so that people know how to use their plan and that they become educated consumers. It empowers us to be able to mimic what you're doing today, but in a whole different way. And we symbolize it in 4 simple terms. BEST. Barriers for care, remove them. Eliminate the confusion. Support the plan participants and providers in a way you've never done before. And the biggest thing you should get out of this, it's transparency. You guys need the information in your hands in order to guide your clients better. And without data, we have nothing. So let's break down each and every one of these. And I believe I'm at 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Barriers to care. You heard that in the HBA. We want to, in this strategy, make the everyday services as inexpensive as possible. The gateway to expense to a healthcare plan is not in the doctor visit or the test that might happen. The gateway to expense to employer and employee starts at the major diagnostic. You know why? Because the outcome of that diagnostic is either expensive therapy, drugs, surgery, hospitalization, or nothing. 4 out of the 5 are not good news for the patient or the plan. So by doing it that way, and then underlying, not a gap plan, but a true secondary plan that is integrated in the core, what that empowers us to do is use one underlying health plan, one design, and then I can use my secondary insurance to make those first dollar, second half, first part of the copay, I can put in the coverages that offset the employee expense. And what I'm also doing simultaneously is I'm not just giving you the flexibility and the creativity that I mentioned was missing from healthcare today. But what I'm actually doing is reducing the cost of the plan. When your client takes a 3-tier option, 3-plan option, you think you're not paying for that in the admin cost of those fully insured rates? Of course you are. It is much easier to use one underlying plan, integrate a secondary, and then mimic those plans by using the secondary to mimic the out-of-pockets that is part of your long-term strategy for success with the employer. And what happens to your claim pool and your claim frequency when the first $6,750 is removed completely? Lower healthcare costs, lower attachment points, freedom. Now, in order to be able to do this, it has to be easy to use. So what we do is that primary and secondary, we talked about the gap plan or filing a supplemental claim form with an AFAC or a Colonial, no offense to them. Employee doesn't have to do anything, because what we do is we have our single TPA administer the primary claim, adjudicate it based on the SPD, look at what the category of health was, if it was subject to the deductible, and we design the secondary to pick up that piece. That kicks in one EOB, one flow, no patient engagement with provider who could delay that. One ID card, and most importantly, one point of discussion, one phone number, because the concierge service is critical, and we're going to touch upon that more in the next slide. You can't just do this without a thoughtful game plan, integrated seamless parts that work together without the employee even realizing. So let's talk about concierge service, because that is one of those things that we really need to do. Up in the Northeast, you have Philly Nurses. You have other companies like Transparent Health, who we love. These folks get welcome kits. They become close with their guides. In essence, takes the burden off of HR. These people are there after the open enrollment period to actually work with that person, to verifying benefits, maybe helping with a pre-certification, maybe a mental health issue. Help them with questions about their plan design. And I'm going to stop on this one. Find a quality provider. I need some audience participation on this one. Can anyone here? I got a $100 contribution to HAFA. If someone can get this answer right, maybe I'll still have 100 either way. But let's see if we can do this. I'm just going to get in the spirit of it. Who is the number one referral provider of health care in the country today? By a show of hands, take a shot at it. Who is?
Primary care provider.
Thanks for playing. We have some nice parting gifts. Good, close, but no cigar.
What'd she say?
Advertisers. No, we're actually trying to avoid Cyndi Lauper here. No.
What was your question?
Who is the number one referral service to physicians all across the country? The number one source for referrals in the country. Go ahead.
Friends and family.
There's a $100 thing. My mom says this doctor is the very best person on the planet. Dr. Smith could have the best bedside manner in the world, but without analytics, they could have the worst misdiagnosis rates. There are 5 keys to the analytics of healthcare: diagnosis, treatment, reoccurrence. And two others I can't remember because I'm having too much fun with this one. The fact of the matter is that we are being guided for care entirely wrong. Now, we are not allowed, no one is allowed to bash a doctor. But if we're talking about strategies, a concierge can say, you know something, Dr. Smith is good. But in your region, we have 3 doctors who have 90+ quality scores in all these key metrics. Oh, and by the way, based on your summary plan description, are going to cost you about $1,300 less. And by the way, your secondary insurance will cover it completely. Now, what is that going to do to our MLR? It's going to change it dramatically. We can't stop dread illness from coming. What we can do is empower people before it gets there, so if they can afford their plan, they might actually find out before it becomes stage 4 cancer. Maybe if we can send them to the right oncologist, maybe they have a better chance to live. Not sick care, everybody. Health care. And last but not least, which I think should be the most powerful part of this for everyone here, we can't do the right job for our clients if we can't tell them how they're running their problems and how we can strategize with them to make changes so that we have a long-term approach for cost control, where we can introduce cutting-edge communication services and engagement tools. We can't do that. And more importantly, we need to let them know with transparency comes a real ability to reduce administrative costs, unwanted waste. There is too much waste in the rates that we bring out to our clients. Claims data always has to be at the client's fingertips. So now, guys, you're probably wondering, this is great. Let me give you some industries. Forget our solutions. Let me give you some targets for these type of evolutionary type of approaches. Number 1, the client who has historically been unwilling to reduce their plans and keep them very rich. Now, some of these are industry-based. Your law firms, private equity, things along those lines. I'm going to flip the script on the other side. Nonprofits and social services, where they must have Cadillac plans for 2 reasons. To retain those people, because they pay them very little. And number 2, because they are counting on federal and state subsidies every year in which they file for their budget 6 months in advance. So if they save too much money, the government's going to cut their funding. But the well is running out on those companies too. We need to make profound changes. And here's another profound change. Let's stop creating unnecessary multiple plan choices, irrespective of whether you stay with a major medical carrier or something like us or another stop-loss company. If you're not going to employ them right, if your employer is not going to employ them right with the right contributions, why have them at all? Forget my solutions. They don't make sense. They don't make sense because they're not being deployed correctly. Clients and the way they're funding towards a high-deductible health plan or an HRA. Guys, if I got 100 lives, and that employer is a $2,000 deductible, and they employ a $1,000 first half fund, right underneath where the carrier is going to load them. And even if you have 3 to 5 years historical data that they've run between 30 to 50% loss ratio on that, it's still an unknown. It's still an unpredictable outcome. It's an untrended, unaccountable item. There are insurance products that can replace what the employer is doing, and it's a deduction. Oh, and by the way, guys, when a client has $1 million premium and it goes to $1.2 million, and they cut their budget by 30% going into an ADHP and they self-fund it, you guys lose because you lose commission. Now, that's not why we do things, but what if you could give them something that works better than what they're doing? That is an insurance product that's more predictable, that functions better, and you make more money. What's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This is my favorite. I love this one. Clients with low renewal percentage. Raise your hand if a renewal came in, you gasped and said it's 3% and said, we're done. How many people? I mean, when's the last time you saw 3% other than when COVID, when nothing was happening? I want to ask everybody a question. Do you think that's the time to get aggressive, or like the backslide when you're so far down the rabbit's hole that you are put in a corner and you can't get out, and nor can the client? In 2020, when COVID hit, I released a piece on the secondary impact of COVID and what would happen to groups and why now is the time to act. In 2021, MLR was down to 0. Want to hear something interesting? The Cleveland Clinic did a study, and they said in 20 years, it was the lowest rate of diagnosed cancer diagnoses in the country. Did we magically get healthy? No one was going to the doctor. And now, one of the things we said is when elective procedures come back because the hospitals aren't filled, we're going to get crushed. We're going to get crushed in a way we've never seen before. And sure enough, that was one thing that half my people didn't listen to. And when I hear someone say, what was healthcare going to go up above trend this year? But you guys know that. Blue Cross Blue Shield, what do they expect above normal MLR trend? Just for a standard EPO plan. But nothing has hit completely because the year hasn't ended either. The point is, the time is to act when things are good, not when you're trapped in a corner. And I'm always going to say this. With lack of choice, we have to start considering alternative methods other than fully insured plans. And frankly, I'm going to give you an example of where not to go level funded. The biggest ripoff in level funded today is issued by Cigna. Cigna will say, of course you can go level funded. Now, if you run like crap, we're protected. Oh, by the way, if you have a surplus, I get 50% of it back. They got 2 aces. They're holding 2 aces before the game of Texas Hold'em even started. Why would you give back your surplus to the carrier? Not me. I'd rather make that work for me. So, there's one last option. Forget everything you've been conditioned to know from the carriers. We need to go back to the future. And what I mean by back, we're already looking at ways where healthcare goes back to a time where there is no network, where people went to doctors and facilities they wanted to without the need, expense, and limitation of a carrier provider. And how is that? This is called geographical healthcare. Look at a group, do a geo-access study. I'll give you a prime example, won't name who I have. I basically insure in one particular state who made an exception out of the state fund retirement system where healthcare comes to particular K through 12. They opened up something called levels of distinction, where based on the curriculum of the school, they had an opportunity to leave the state. And we looked at about 30 K through 12 ISDs of a particular state. And what we realized is that 98% of them worked with 2 healthcare providers, 2 major hospital systems. Now, what I'm talking about is not RVP. We have partners, or there are partners out there for you, who have direct alliance contracts with those facilities. Forget RVP for a minute. What if I can go to this particular healthcare system and I've got 10,000 lives and $10 million to spend. I want your whole rate book and let's negotiate a fair settlement. I'm taking all the fat out of healthcare and I'm going right to the source. Geographical alliance contracts. Direct provider contracting with Concierge Service so that they'll accept the service if someone wants to work with them. Capitated PBM per script, not the rebates that come back and go into the alphabet house's pocket. Monies that are there to protect the risk pool so if they run well, they can be redistributed to protect the renewal. Guys, I want to ask everybody a question. Why is it that 28% of the healthcare spend is pharmacy, not 72%, but the pharmacy companies own the healthcare companies. Because a dollar script, once you get to the AWP, the NADAC line, this script stealing that happens at CVS, who are getting rebates upon their own rebates on the shit that they, excuse my shit, I said shit, sorry. On the crap. Yeah, I just did curse. I'm New York, okay? I can't take that away. They're making money on their own money. That is an efficiency we cannot live with anymore, an inefficiency we can't live with anymore. We need to buy our pieces individually and then use data to run them correctly. And we need engagement. If there's anything you come out of this, guys, we're not doing a good enough job educating. We are not doing enough of a job connecting with our people year to year. Employers need to take communication and engagement very seriously if they want to change the outcomes of healthcare. It's not going to do it on its own. Guys, the future is already here. It's here now. You guys are the gateway to client solutions. You just need to free your mind. And with that, we are out of the jungle. So, before the music, I know I went through the whole way. I should have said, guys, you could interrupt, ask questions, but the truth is I really love my voice. No, I'm teasing. So I'd like to answer any questions from the room right now. I'd like to open it up. If anybody has any questions for me on any part of this content.
How are you solving the RX problem?
Well, you see, we don't have the ability. There was a big conversation about Canadian drugs are selling 80% of them back and then coming back to us 1,000 times more expensive. We don't have solutions there. But you have to understand something, George. Right now, what it costs to manufacture a drug versus what it goes out to the end consumer is inconscionable. We have to take away the rebates. And those rebates need to be done and used to refortify what's going on with the group. Not in our pockets, guys. In the client's pockets. We need to go to a per script model. Now, people will argue that a per script model actually incentivizes because they want more script usage. Not if you do it the right way with controlled formulary. You gotta be smart and judicious with what's in the formulary. And you also have to realize that we serve our clients. I don't serve the PBM. So there are some efficiencies, George, we can bring in. There are other ideas about separating the card. You know, there's one guy who sold 2 PBMs for about $6.7 billion. He made all the money in the world. And you know what he said I wanted to do? I wanted to focus on the uninsured. So he got 25 of his best people from PBMs who all got bought out and could do what they want. They started a 50-state pharmacy out of a warehouse in Ohio. And they went to all their manufacturers and they said, let's look at the CDC quarterly review of all the drugs and the patents out there in America today. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to directly source them. And we're going to make it an easy membership fee for those people to get that drug. And then we're going to give it to them at a price. Someone said, I think it was Mike, insulin. How about insulin? The generic alternative that can work and it's proven at $9.99 a vial. It is there. So there are ideas we can do, George. Anybody else with questions?
Are you utilizing any medical tourism in your plans?
You know something? The ones that we've affected, because if you saw from Best, it's really customized. I do not know that we have had to use medical tourism in anything that we're doing. But then again, that's where wonderful markets and sponsors come from, where if you guys know of something that you want to integrate in our strategy and we can do it, by all means. I didn't say I knew every solution.
Okay. And then I had one TPA that was utilizing, which I thought was against the law.
Can you repeat the question? We didn't hear it.
She was finishing it, sir.
No, I wanted to hear it.
Oh, yeah. Maybe
So
speak
I'm
up a little bit.
checking like I usually do. Are you using any prescriptions from overseas sources like Canada?
Okay, when we are talking, that is not, I do not know the latest doctrine. I know there is something up there right now. Do you know anything about them approving in any of the House or state legislature the ability to bring in from Canada? Do you guys know back there? I don't. As far as I know, I've been told from all my providers that you can't.
Cannot. That's
You
what I
cannot.
thought, so-
But judicious use of patient assistance programs are part of any program we use. And again, we go into that Medicare line and we look at affordability. And frankly, there are federal programs, and I want to say it's either the 50C, it's either the 305 or the 405 that allows that if you go to a federal clinic and have a health assessment, they are allowed to skip the NADAC line and they're able to acquire the drugs directly for those people who can't get through patient assistance because they make over whatever that state number is, 100,000, 80,000, something along those lines.
I mean, I think it's worth pointing out, for us to make a formulary that complies with the qualified health plan standard, we're gonna have around 12,000 drugs on that formulary, and it's very hard to go lower than that. If you lived in Canada and you had their health plan, it doesn't cover drugs at all.
Right.
That's why when the Canadian goes to the pharmacy, his medicine is $25 or $30 or $50. There's no deep-pocketed third-party payer there to cover the cost.
Right. There's also a panel who decides whether you're worthy of the drug.
The whole Canadian, but the model like the UK uses, they only cover about 3,400 drugs in their whole global formulary, and we have to cover 12,000.
I know.
From 1,200 manufacturers.
Now, wouldn't it be so much easier if we took all that fat out of it and we literally could just make it affordable? But I guess that's another topic for another HAFA summit. Maybe I'll come up with that one if I figure it out. Any questions from Mr. Jersey?
Pharmaceutical thing is it's a whole other animal, because we were supposed to have that law in 2022 with 25 drugs, and then in 24 we had 50 drugs, and
Yep.
now it's gonna be 2025, and we're back to square one.
Before I leave, because I took 50 minutes, which I literally was in my room timing myself going, please don't run over, please don't run over.
Great.
Does anybody have any questions? Anything else or comments?
You mentioned some sort of outfit out of Ohio that's out of a warehouse. What is this outfit?
Well, this outfit is actually a product that we white labeled called SupRx. It's not on the agenda today. We're actually on a voluntary or an employer paid basis. We actually can bring 94% of the most commonly prescribed drugs in the country, and we actually directly source them in all 50 states. The guy who basically wrote the book on PBM and direct market like GoodRx is actually the guy who wrote this game plan so that people can get the drugs they need at an affordable price. It is not considered an insurance product. It should not replace a 12,000 formulary with the specialty drugs they need. It just gives, through education, employees a chance to make a choice. But yes, it does exist.
And that's a white label product that you
It absolutely is. I've been working on it for 2.5 years because I, unlike Mark Cuban, really wanted to figure out the RX issue. He should just stick to owning the Mavericks. And Shark Tank, he's very good on Shark Tank. Anybody else? Well, if that's the case, thank you guys again.
Thank you.